See whatever comes to you unasked for as a manifestation of his will. Be grateful for the pains you experience, for they are healing strokes of his love. Sometimes healing is effected only by strong measures, but his love for you is manifested in the very attempt to heal. Strive always to be impersonal, as though whatever happens to you were happening to someone else. Persecution gives us the supreme opportunity to deny the thought, this is happening to me, and to affirm our inner freedom from the thought of ego. Don't allow the negative perceptions of others to become your own self-definition. Seek God. This is the true goal of life. Though how difficult to cling to in the midst of hatred, spite, and persecution. The Bhagavad Gita tells us in the 7th chapter, out of thousands, one strives for spiritual attainment. And out of many blessed true seekers who strive assiduously to reach me, one, perhaps, perceives me as I am. O true seeker, be one among all those thousands who seek the supreme goal. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
Everyone. I'll start this morning with a whispers reading. Yogananda's beautiful book of poem, prayers, and demands. Today is I'll be reading number 153. Teach me that my senses contact nothing but the good. In parentheses, inspired by the Hindu scriptures. Bless me that I may behold nothing but that which is good. Teach me that I may touch only purity. Train me that I may listen to thy voice alone in all good speech and in the beauty of all lovely melodies. Direct me to breathe only the perfume of pure sense from the flowers of spirit. Invite me to indulge only in the wholesome taste of soul-nourishing food. Teach me to absorb only that which reminds me of thee. So what a beautiful poem from Yogananda ji. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about seeing God in everything, in every person, in nature, in the people that hurt us and harm us. And I'd like to start by talking a little bit about Pope Francis, who just passed away. I was raised Catholic, and when you're a child in the Catholic Church, the Pope looms large, right? The Pope is almost like the king of the universe, of course, under God. But Francis was different because he really, in my mind, of the popes in my lifetime, he really walked the talk of Jesus to love everybody equally. And just the fact that he took the name Francis, he was the only pope who took the name Francis, and it was in honor of Saint Francis, who he had a great affinity to. And of course, we have a great affinity to Saint Francis here as well, of Assisi. And Saint Francis was the patron saint of the environment, of nature, of the animals. And Pope Francis as well had a great love for the planet. In fact, he said that the planet Earth was God's greatest and most beautiful creation. And as God's children, it was our responsibility to care for it. And he stood up to politicians, who denied global warming. He talked about the fact that the poorest among us would be the ones who suffered the most greatly from the environmental catastrophe that could happen if we don't protect our planet. He was a champion of the poor. He came from humble background. He eschewed all of the pomp and circumstances of the papacy. Instead of living in the Vatican apartment, which many described as similar to Buckingham Palace, he lived in a little guest house next door, which was much more humble. He tried not to use the Pope mobile unless he absolutely had to, because he instead wanted to be with the people the way that Jesus is. He wanted to bless the people and be with the people. He also welcomed divorced people back into the church. And in my lifetime, that was a big thing. I know in my family, my aunt, who was a devoted Christian, felt rejected by the church because of divorce. So that was also a really incredible thing. And also, he was the first pope to not only acknowledge, but invite the LGBTQ community into the church. So many of these things were considered scandalous, and many of the conservatives criticized him. And in response, he said, "Who am I to judge?" Now, if that's not from Christ, what else is? Who am I to judge? And that's such a beautiful reminder for us, because judgment is a form of aggression. It's harmful to other people. In today's reading, we're being asked to love our enemies, those who persecute us. Now, luckily, most of us don't have enemies, but we've all been hurt by other people, probably, right? We've all had something happen in our life where we were heartbroken, perhaps we were lied to, maybe people talked about us in an unkind way behind our back. And when that happens, the first response can be to sort of build a wall around your heart and to sort of give it back. But that's not how we love those who hurt us. And there's 3 ways that we can do that I'd like to talk about today. The first way is to mind our thoughts, to become very aware of our thinking. The second is to live in the presence of God at all times, because when we live in the presence of God, there's no room for negative thinking. And the third is the beautiful blessing of the peace and harmony prayer that Yogananda gave to us. So starting with the first, minding our thoughts. In psychology, there's a definition or a term called rumination. So I know many of you in here are therapists and you understand rumination. And one of the definitions of rumination is non-productive thinking. Ruination, thank you, Kelly. Ruination, to ruin our own mind. And everyone here has had an experience where you have an argument with a loved one, or somebody has a conflict with you and you go to bed thinking about it. It's like a trap in your mind. You can't let it go. You can't let it go. You wake up the next morning, you can't let it go. And science has proven that when we do that, they've done studies on the brain, that the brain releases neurochemicals and stress hormones that are harmful to the physical body. So when we're thinking unkind thoughts about another person, we're actually harming ourselves physically. In addition to that, we're harming the other person. So we all know that thoughts are causal. And that means that in this world of creation, the divine law is that for anything to come into manifestation, we have to think of it first. So it's just like dropping a pebble in a still lake. When you drop a pebble in a still lake, there's those concentric circles that go out. So if we're thinking negative thoughts, unkind thoughts about another person, we're sending that thought out into the ether. And that thought takes on energy. And that energy becomes a manifestation. And even though the person might not be conscious of you sending daggers, so to speak, but their soul receives that. And that can manifest as waking up and feeling sad, or just feeling confused, or feeling uneasy. And so in addition, again, to us not only hurting ourselves, but hurting other people through our own thought process. The opposite is true too. And just when we think about karma, when we send out that negative thought, it has to come back to us in some way. That's the law of karma as well. So we want to be really mindful of our thoughts. And just the opposite is true as well. If we send out thoughts of love and peace and harmony, then we're able to change and heal those relationships. Yogananda said that even the most difficult relationships can be repaired through the mind. So through God's grace, we've been given free will, and through our free will, we can make a choice to heal our relationships. We can either choose our lower nature, and we can sort of go into that darkness and that repetitive negative thinking, that rumination about our perceived enemies or those who hurt us, or we can lift it up. We can offer it to God, and we can do just the opposite. We can offer love. Now, it can be really hard to do that. You know, I'm sure we've all had situations where it was hard to send someone love who really hurt us. But one of the ways that we can mind our thoughts, mind that repetitive negative thought loop, is to stay in the presence of God. And there's no one who better was an example of that than Brother Lawrence. Many of us are familiar with Brother Lawrence's writings. He lived in the mid-1600s. It was a long time ago, but his work, his writings were so pure and so simple that people still look to them now for inspiration. He, like Saint Francis, had an experience of God in nature. He was 18 years old, and he said that he looked at a bare tree in the winter, and the way he describes it, it was a superconscious experience. He could see God in the tree germinating into the leaf, the flower, and the fruit. And through that experience, he turned to God, and he again realized that God is in everything. God is in each of us, in the animals, in the plants, in the stars, in the planets. From there, he went into the army when he was 18 years old, and then he became a footman. And it wasn't until he was 55 years old that he entered the Carmelites. And the Carmelites are known for the priests who go barefoot. And it's very similar to the Franciscans. He, again, was also attuned to that consciousness of purity and mercy and grace that St. Francis offered, and Pope Francis. And when he was 55 years old, he was best known for practicing the presence of God. The priests around him knew that he was in constant conversation with God. He was always thinking of God and talking to God. And I just want to read something that he wrote. It's so beautiful. He called it the most excellent method. And he said, you need to accustom yourself with constant conversation with him, a conversation which is free and simple. We need to recognize that God is always present with us and address him every moment. In your conversation with God, be also employed in praising him, adoring him, and loving him incessantly, doing all of these things because of his infinite goodness and perfection. So when we're in that mindset of loving God, thinking of God, talking to God, there's no room for negativity, is there? There's just no space. And that type of conversation with God brings grace, and that grace is a healing balm to our relationships. Yogananda said, no matter what you may be doing, you are always free to whisper your love to God until you consciously receive his response. This is the surest way to contact him in the rush of present day life. I had an experience myself of repeating, I love you, God, when I was young. I was only 24, and I went through a very, at the time, now it seems not like a big deal, but at the time it was a devastating heartbreak, a devastating breakup, and my father was dying of cancer at the same time. I was so angry. I was so angry at the person who hurt me. I was angry at God that my dad was so sick. And I just remember I couldn't pray at all. And I've been praying my whole life. I've had a deep love of God, but I was really angry. And I remember just saying one day, I'm so mad and sad and upset right now that I don't know what to say. And as clear as a bell, I heard a voice in my head say, just say, I love you. And I started to repeat that japa practice, that mantra, just say, I love you. It was the thing that got me out of bed because I was almost debilitated with grief at that time in my life. It helped me get to my job. I just repeated it all day long for weeks, for months. And something remarkable started to happen. I actually started to feel compassion for the person who hurt me, and then forgiveness. It was such a powerful thing. And that's what God does. That's what God's grace brings to us. There's nothing else in this world that can bring forgiveness than tuning in to God, because God is mercy, God is grace, God is all forgiving, all loving. And that can help us too to see God in every person. You know, sometimes in the world we live in, we tend to bring people into groups of others. They're different than me, they're different, they're others. But in God's eyes, we're all identical. God loves each of us equally. It's just like when the rain falls equally on everything that it touches. And that's how God's love is. So the last thing that we can do, so the first thing was to mind our thoughts and then to stay in constant conversation with God. And the third thing is Yogananda's beautiful peace and harmony prayer. So the peace and harmony prayer works the same way as sending out loving thoughts. And Master said that sometimes, again, if we're really hurt, it's hard to feel forgiveness and love in the beginning, but this prayer can help us sort of bridge that gap until we get there ourselves. And we say the prayer for the planet all the time, and we'll do it today before we end. But when you're in conflict with another person, you simply visualize that person. And Master said if it's hard to visualize that person because you're so upset, offer it to Master or God or Jesus. Say, you visualize them for me. And then you simply say, Lord, fill so-and-so with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And you say it 10 times. And then you turn it around for yourself. Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And many of us in this room have experience of using that prayer when we've been in conflict. And it works every time. I guarantee it works. Something shifts in the energy. And of course, it's in God's time. It might not happen immediately, but sometimes weeks or months or even years go by, and there's a shift in that relationship. So it's a very, very powerful thing for us to remember. And that's essentially what we're trying to do. Be ye therefore perfect as my Father in heaven. That's the perfection that we are trying to seek as devotees. We're just trying to really embody that Christ consciousness. We're trying to embody that reality that we're not separate from God, even though we might perceive ourselves as these individual packages of consciousness. There's only one consciousness. There's only one God, one love, and we're all part of that. So let's take this moment and together, let's visualize our planet. Before we do that, actually, I just want to say one thing, because there's so much divisiveness in the world right now. We know that. And it can be really hard for us, especially those of us who love the environment and love nature and love other people. It's hard to see the war that's happening on the planet. It's hard to see the destruction of the environment. It's hard to see politicians that are in denial about what's happening. And if we focus on that, we can cause more of that divisiveness, just like putting that pebble and sending that message out. So we want to be really careful with our own thoughts regarding that. And we want to just keep sending love and peace and harmony, because eventually that will lift the consciousness of the world. So that's what we can do. That's our gift in this situation, is to just keep sending love, just keep sending peace, just keep sending harmony. So let's visualize our entire planet as though we're looking at it from space, and see the whole planet surrounded in God's light, Divine Mother's light. See all great saints and sages putting their love and energy to our planet. And let's visualize all areas of war and violence on the planet at this time. See God's love bringing comfort to all those people who are suffering, all those people who are seeking shelter and refuge in the world at this time, all those affected by natural disaster. Just see God's light surrounding our planet. And together, let's pray. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And for ourselves, Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Let's rub our hands together and we'll chant Om. Send that intention into the world. Send that love and peace. Om. 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 Stay. Have our offering.
Please take what you'd like to give, place it in your right hand, and repeat after me. Divine Mother, we offer to thee the fruit of our labors,